Hey, this is Don once again with Padlock Technologies owner and principal, and we're going to continue with another use case for Cisco Secure Access or SASE in general. We did secure internet access, which is probably the main reason you would go to Cisco Secure Access or SASE solution. The next one we're going to go is pretty much a huge topic from what I hear in the space right now, and that second use case is use case number two. Use case two is ZTNA. Now, I know I've talked about this in nauseum in the other videos so far that you've watched, but I just want to give you a little bit more detailed, especially off of the last video, why you would use this feature. So ZTNA is zero trust, right? Zero trust. It goes off of a concept of never trust, always verify. So basically, in the Cisco Secure Access world, or SASE in general, or just zero trust in general, we already assume that you are a bad guy. We don't trust you, but we always verify no matter what you try to do. So where did this come into play with Cisco Secure Access or SASE in general? Now, this is going to come off the back of the ACP rule because you have to do this in the ACP. So in Cisco Secure Access, they have this thing called private resources. Now, what private resources are, this can be, FTP server. This can be an internal web server, etc. So what you would technically do in Cisco Secure Access is you would create these, I call them objects, and then you would tie a ZTNA policy to it. Now, there's two type of ZTNA policies you can create. You can create the client-based policy, and then you can create a browser-based policy. Now, with these two, you can pretty much put them in the same rule, actually. So one rule can do both. For both, I'll just say for both, right? Now, there is a dependency on DNS resolution, right? So you got to resolve the DNS. Now in Cisco, you actually tell it where your DNS server is, and then it will, query the DNS server to get that FQDN to IP mapping. This is all dependent, though, on the original backhaul tunnel. If the backhaul tunnel does not know how to get to your DNS server, this will not work. So in your ZTNA policy, though, you have ZTNA posture profiles. And the good thing about these posture profiles, it will say you have to have a certain criteria before you can even do ZTNA. So before you can even, access a resource, it's going to ask you, one, log in to a certain platform, an IDP preferably, which could be Entra ID, Duo, Okta for right now. And then after you do that, it's going to do a posture check to say, hey, it could be a bunch of stuff. It could be firewall. It can be, do you have disk encryption? Do you have, anti-malware, antivirus on your machine? If all these check out, if all of these check out, then it'll say, okay, you can access the resource. Why would you want to implement that? Well, again, if you're trying to implement ZTNA in your environment, especially now, I see this really used from the WAN side. Now, with ZTNA, this is that allows you to access resources whether you're on VPN. This is actually an alternative to VPN. So VPN and ZTNA are two different ways to access something, right? RAVPN, and let me specify RAVPN here. RAVPN, you will be able to get resources once you're on the network, and that's actually use case number 3 And then ZTNA actually works without you being on the VPN. So if you're using client base, if you're using client base or browser base, it allows you to access a resource without actually functioning or actually using a VPN. This is kind of old school now. So I'm going to say old school. Because as long as you have ZTNA, technically it will tunnel the traffic to these resources as long as you have access to the resources via backhaul tunnel or resource connector. Now, browser base obviously is good for contractors. So if you have a contractor, you do not want to get them set up with, the modules and all that good stuff, and they really only need to get to a web application to probably do some data entry. Well, then you will say, okay, I'm going to create a ZTNA policy in the ACP. This is all still going off the ACP. And I'm going to say this private resource that they're trying to get to, they can only get through the browser. They're not allowed to use the module to get to this. Now, with browser base, what it does is Cisco Secure Access will create a dummy URL. Now, it's not really a dummy because this URL can be accessed from anywhere in the internet. And then you give that person or your contractor that URL, ZTNA will be forced to sign in, and then ZTNA will start kicking in. The policies start kicking in. Now, this dummy URL is pretty long, so you may have to do, a web redirect on your main domain site, or come up with a site to say, www.ztna.com or whatever, and then web redirect it to the dummy URL, right? So that people don't see that long URL, and then you mask it so they don't see what URL you're actually going to. But again, this is a way you can access resources without getting to the RAVPN. And most people don't need RAVPN to get to a web app. Now, with Secure Access or Cisco Secure Access or SASE, you can just eliminate the whole, I need to provision, the security client, I need to provision the ZTNA module, I need to do all this provisioning. You can just get rid of that and just say, okay, if you only need to get to a web server, or you need to get to a web front end, or you need to get to something front end, browser based is always going to be web based. I'll just give you this URL. You go into that and sign in. We're done. Client base can do more than just web. You can pretty much ZTNA anything. It's going to be encapsulated in QUIC. It uses the QUIC protocol to tunnel their traffic to wherever resource that you need to get to. Again, this is based on DNS resolution. Technically, I can do RDP. If I had a private resource that I wanted to do RDP to, say it was, let's say the FTP server, yeah, we want to do FTP, but I want to be able to RDP to it for network admins or something like that. I can technically do a ZTNA policy on that web server for RDP traffic, and the module will intercept my RDP traffic and send it directly to my resource that I have connectivity to through my backhaul tunnel or resource connector. Beauty of that, I don't need an RAVPN to get to that, and it's going to give me the security of never trust, always verify, because I have to log in before I can actually do RDP to whatever resource that I need. So this is one of the major use cases that I've been hearing that people want and that people want to implement into their network. This also ties into, secure access. This is the secure access piece. So the last video we did secure internet, which is technically secure edge. This is secure access. The next use case we're going to talk about is VPN as a service, which again is secure access. But if you want more information about this, about SASE, about Cisco Secure Access, but SASE in general, I do have a white paper. There is a link in the description below. If you are interested in finally implementing ZTNA in your network and you want to see how we can help you implement this, there is another link below that says, let's talk at padlocktech.com. That is to schedule a discovery call. Again, it is not a sales call. I don't even know if I can help you yet because I don't know anything about your network. So this is a discovery call to see where you're at right now and where you want to go, and then to see if we can help. Other than that, I hope this video was informative. Thank you and have a nice day.